your wife, your best friend. Check the cameras, 7 words. 7 words that detonated my entire existence at precisely 0600 hours on a Tuesday morning, just as I was adjusting my white gloves for what I thought would be another routine day guarding the tomb of the unknown soldier. My name is Michael Harrison, and those 7 words from an unknown number would transform me from a decorated Army staff sergeant into something far more dangerous. A betrayed man with military precision, unlimited patience, and absolutely nothing left to lose. The security footage loaded in crystal clear high definition. Timestamp 21:47 hours the previous evening. The same evening my wife Sarah had texted me about having dinner with her sister Jessica. The same evening I'd been standing watch over heroes who'd died for honor, while my own was being butchered in my living room. There she was. My auburn-haired wife of 8 years, her body pressed against David Thompson, my childhood best friend, my best man, the godfather to children we'd planned but never had. They moved with the practiced ease of lovers who'd choreographed this dance many times before. In my house, on my couch, heading toward my bedroom. My bedroom. I forced myself to watch every second. The soldier in me cataloged evidence while the husband in me died frame by frame. David's hands in her hair. Sarah's breathless laugh at his whispered words. The casual intimacy that spoke of months, not moments, of betrayal. 21 steps north. Pause. About face. 21 steps south. The ancient ritual of the tomb guard called me back, but now each step echoed with the sound of my world shattering. The unknown soldiers beneath my feet had sacrificed everything for honor. What the hell had I sacrificed mine for? For 3 weeks, I became the most dangerous thing in the world, a trained killer who said nothing and saw everything. I came home each evening to Sarah's bright smile and Judas kisses. She'd ask about my day while planning her next rendezvous. David called regularly, his voice warm with false brotherhood as he offered to help Sarah through another lonely deployment. The audacity was breathtaking. Here was my wife's lover, volunteering to comfort her through the loneliness he was helping to create. "You seem tense lately, Michael," Sarah said one evening, her manicured fingers massaging my shoulders. "Maybe you should talk to David about it. He's always been good at helping you work through things." The suggestion hit like a sniper's bullet. My wife was recommending I confide in the man who was systematically destroying our marriage. I smiled and nodded while internally adding another charge to their growing indictment. Every lie became evidence. Every book club meeting was documented. Every girls' night out was cross-referenced with David's credit card statements, which I'd accessed through our shared streaming accounts and some creative social engineering. The pattern emerged like a battle plan written in deception. Hotel rooms. Expensive dinners. Jewelry I'd never seen Sarah wear. 8 months. They'd been at this for 8 months, starting just after my previous deployment. Every goodbye kiss before I left for Arlington had been contaminated by his touch. Every "I love you" text during my shifts had been sent while she planned to see him. But the most devastating discovery came from Sarah's phone, which I'd cloned using techniques learned in Army intelligence training. Text messages that read like love letters to another life. "Can't wait until his deployment ends and we can tell him. I'm tired of hiding us. Just a few more months of this charade. Then we can be together properly. He suspects nothing. Military men are so trusting." That last one nearly broke my legendary tomb guard composure during the changing of the guard ceremony. Military men are so trusting. As if honor and loyalty were character flaws instead of the bedrock of civilization. Sun Tzu wrote that all warfare is based on deception. Sarah and David had mastered the art. But they'd made one critical error. They'd declared war on a professional soldier without realizing the battle had begun. I hired James Cooper, a former military police investigator turned private detective. Within 72 hours, he'd provided a complete dossier that read like an intelligence briefing on enemy combatants. Photographs of clandestine meetings, video footage of hotel arrivals and departures, financial records showing David's business expenses that funded their affair, phone records revealing hundreds of calls and texts deleted from both their devices, but preserved in cellular company databases. Most damaging of all, audio recordings from their favorite restaurant, where they'd discussed not just their relationship, but their timeline for ending my marriage. They'd already consulted a divorce attorney. They had plans for my house, my savings, even my dog. They weren't just having an affair, they were staging a hostile takeover of my entire life. "The target is Richmond Country Club," Cooper reported during our final briefing. "Annual charity gala. 500 of the city's social and business elite. Both subjects will be in attendance in their professional capacities." Sarah worked as social media manager for the Richmond Children's Foundation. David served on their board of directors. Their professional relationship had provided perfect cover for personal betrayal. It would also provide the perfect venue for their public execution. My final week as a tomb guard felt like preparing for the most important mission of my military career. Every detail mattered. Every contingency required planning. The unknown soldiers had taught me that some sacrifices were so profound they demanded eternal vigilance. My marriage had died months ago. I was simply planning the funeral. The security system I'd installed throughout our house wasn't just for monitoring. It was for recording. High-definition, time-stamped, court-admissible evidence of every encounter. The private investigator had captured their public meetings. I documented their private moments. Together, we'd built a case that would make prosecutors weep with joy. But this wasn't about legal victory. This was about justice. Military justice. Swift, decisive, and absolutely devastating. Friday evening, I came home to find Sarah preparing for the gala. She wore the blue dress I'd bought for our anniversary, her hair styled in loose curls that caught the light. For a heartbreaking moment, she looked exactly like the woman I'd married. Beautiful, radiant, innocent. "You look stunning," I told her, meaning every word. Stunning and treacherous. "Thank you," she beamed, rising on tiptoes to kiss my cheek. "I wish you could come tonight, but I know these charity things bore you." Another lie in an ocean of deception. I'd always enjoyed the Foundation's events, but Sarah had gradually excluded me, claiming work obligations and social dynamics I wouldn't understand. Now I knew she'd been protecting her double life. "Have fun," I said, helping her with her coat. "Give David my regards." The irony was lost on her completely. Saturday arrived with unseasonable warmth and crystal-clear skies, perfect weather for a public execution. I spent the morning in final preparation, then dressed in my full military dress uniform. Not the ceremonial whites of a tomb guard, but my dress blues with every ribbon and medal earned through 8 years of service. If I was going to war, I'd wear my colors proudly. The Richmond Country Club epitomized old Virginia money, marble columns, crystal chandeliers, and the kind of understated elegance that whispered wealth instead of shouting it. I arrived early, blending into the crowd of philanthropists and socialites, just another military veteran supporting a worthy cause. I spotted Sarah immediately. She held court near the silent auction, radiant in her element, accepting compliments on the evening's organization. David hovered nearby with proprietary familiarity, their body language screaming intimacy to anyone trained in surveillance. They looked perfect together, natural, comfortable in their deception. At exactly 2,000 hours, just as the evening's program began, I executed my mission. The charity had contracted Richmond AV Solutions for technical support. A generous donation to their company charity fund and some military credentials had earned me 5 minutes of their cooperation. Sometimes the direct approach was the most effective. As the Foundation president took the stage to begin the program, I triggered Phase 1. The massive screens positioned throughout the ballroom, intended for donor recognition and promotional materials, suddenly displayed something far more personal. High-definition footage of Sarah and David filled every surface, their 8-month affair documented in devastating detail. The audience's polite murmur died instantly. 500 people sat in stunned silence as months of deception played out in crystal-clear video. Hotel room encounters. Passionate kisses in my living room. Intimate conversations about their future together and my planned disposal. Sarah's scream shattered the silence like breaking glass. David lunged toward the AV booth, but my military contacts, strategically positioned as volunteer security, intercepted him with professional efficiency. The footage continued for exactly 3 minutes, long enough to be thorough, short enough to maintain maximum shock value. As the screens went dark, I walked onto the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen," my voice carried the authority of 8 years in uniform, trained to command attention in life-or-death situations. The ballroom fell silent except for Sarah's sobbing and the nervous whispers of 500 witnesses. "My name is Staff Sergeant Michael Harrison, United States Army. For the past 6 months, I've served as a sentinel at the tomb of the unknown soldier in Arlington National Cemetery." I let that sink in. In Virginia, military service commanded respect. Tomb guards were revered as the elite among the elite, warriors chosen to honor the ultimate sacrifice. The unknown soldiers gave everything for their country. They asked for nothing in return except honor, the simple recognition that their sacrifice meant something. They represent the best of American values: duty, sacrifice, integrity, loyalty. My eyes found Sarah in the crowd. She sat collapsed in her chair, mascara streaming down her cheeks, the blue dress now seeming like a costume for a role she could no longer play. "Tonight you've witnessed the opposite of those values." The silence was absolute. Even the waitstaff had stopped moving. My wife, Sarah Harrison, and my former best friend, David Thompson, have spent 8 months conducting an affair while I served our nation's fallen heroes. They used their positions with this foundation, an organization dedicated to helping children, as cover for their deception. David stood frozen near the silent auction, his face the color of old parchment, his carefully cultivated reputation crumbling in real time. But this isn't just about adultery. It's about the systematic corruption of trust, the weaponization of service, and the mockery of sacrifice. I reached into my jacket and produced a thick folder. Mr. Thompson's business practices deserve scrutiny. His consulting firm has been creative in categorizing personal expenses as business deductions, particularly those funding his affair. The IRS might find his tax filings interesting. David's face went from pale to green. Whatever financial irregularities existed, my implication was clear and terrifying. Mrs. Harrison's position with this foundation created ethical violations when she used donor-funded events as meeting opportunities for personal gain. The board might want to review her expense accounts, travel authorizations, and the foundation's social media strategies that coincidentally promoted venues where she conducted her affair. Sarah looked up at me with pleading eyes, but mercy was a luxury I could no longer afford. She'd made her choices deliberately, repeatedly, for 8 months of calculated betrayal. I've dedicated my life to service, I continued, my voice cutting through the silence like a blade. I've stood watch over heroes who died protecting the freedoms that allow us to make choices about how we live our lives. My wife and former friend chose dishonor. Tonight, they face the consequences. I stepped down from the stage and walked toward the exit, the crowd parting like the Red Sea before Moses. Behind me, chaos erupted, board members huddling in crisis management mode, guests filming with their phones, reporters who'd been covering the charity event suddenly realizing they had a much bigger story. Sarah caught me in the parking lot, her heels clicking desperately on asphalt as she ran after me. "Michael, please," she gasped, grabbing my arm with both hands. "Let me explain. It wasn't supposed to happen like this." "We never meant first. You never meant to get caught," I corrected, gently removing her hands. "There's a difference." "I love you," she whispered, the words hollow as artillery shells. "I've always loved you." I studied her face, really looked at her for the first time in months. She was still beautiful, still the woman who'd stolen my heart at a college party 9 years ago. But beauty without honor was just attractive packaging around rot. "No," I said quietly. "You loved the idea of me. The security of being married to a soldier, the respectability, the benefits. But you couldn't love me enough to honor your vows when I was gone serving the country that protects your freedom to betray me." David appeared beside her, his confident businessman persona completely shattered. In his expensive suit, he looked like exactly what he was, a coward who'd stabbed his best friend in the back. "Michael, man, I'm sorry," he stammered. "I know how this looks, but you have to understand." "I understand perfectly," I interrupted. "I understand that you spent 8 months lying to my face while planning to steal my life. I understand that you used my service, my honor, as an opportunity for your betrayal. I understand that you're exactly the kind of person the unknown soldiers died protecting us from." "What do you want?" David asked desperately. "Money? I can pay you. We can work this out privately. No one else has to know." I almost laughed at the absurdity. 500 people just watched your sex tape, David. It's trending on social media as we speak. Privacy isn't an option anymore." "Then what?" Sarah pleaded. "What can we do to fix this?" "You can live with the consequences of your choices," I said simply. "Just like I'll live with the consequences of mine. The difference is my choices were guided by honor. Yours were guided by selfishness." I climbed into my truck and drove away, leaving them standing in the parking lot amid the wreckage of their reputations. In my rearview mirror, I watched other guests emerge from the building, pointing and whispering, their phones already spreading the story across Richmond's interconnected social networks. By the time I reached my apartment, it was trending nationally. The story exploded across every platform imaginable. A decorated tomb guard exposing his wife's affair at a charity gala captured the public imagination like nothing in recent memory. Military communities across the country rallied to my defense. Veterans organizations issued statements supporting my actions. Social media influencers dissected every frame of the footage. Sarah lost her job within 48 hours as the foundation's board moved to distance themselves from the scandal. David's consulting firm hemorrhaged clients as businesses questioned his ethics and judgment. The IRS audit I'd suggested became reality when former clients, emboldened by the publicity, came forward with their own concerns about his creative bookkeeping. The investigation revealed a pattern of tax fraud that would eventually result in federal charges, substantial fines, and a prison sentence that effectively ended his career. But the most satisfying victory came from an unexpected source, the unknown soldiers themselves. A week after the gala, I received a letter from the Old Guard, the elite unit responsible for Arlington National Cemetery. They were offering me a permanent position as a tomb guard instructor, training the next generation of sentinels. My actions, they wrote, had exemplified the values the tomb represented: honor, integrity, and the unwavering defense of what was sacred. The divorce proceedings were swift and decisive. Virginia's adultery laws, combined with overwhelming evidence and Sarah's complete lack of public sympathy, meant she received minimal settlement despite our 8-year marriage. The house, the savings, even the dog, everything stayed with me. 3 months later, I stood once again before the tomb of the unknown soldier, but this time as an instructor watching a new sentinel execute his 21 steps. Each movement was precise, each pause filled with reverence for the nameless heroes sleeping beneath Virginia soil. The young soldier reminded me of myself 6 months earlier, dedicated, honorable, trusting in the goodness of others. I hoped his trust would be better rewarded than mine had been. 5 years have passed since that night at the Richmond Country Club. The video still surfaces occasionally on social media, usually accompanied by commentary about honor, betrayal, and the price of deception. I've become something of a folk hero in military circles, the soldier who turned his training against those who'd wronged him and emerged victorious. Sarah remarried last year to a man she met through online dating, far from Richmond and its long memory. The ceremony was small, private, attended mostly by people who didn't know her history. Sometimes I wonder if she told her new husband about what happened, or if she's building another life on the foundation of selective truth. David never recovered professionally. His consulting empire collapsed under the weight of investigation and lost clients. He works now as a junior accountant for a small firm in North Carolina, his dreams of business success reduced to cubicle anonymity. The federal conviction remains on his record, a permanent reminder of the price of betrayal. I don't feel satisfaction in their downfall, only a quiet recognition that justice was served. They faced the consequences of their choices, just as I faced the consequences of mine. The difference was that my choices were guided by honor, theirs by selfishness and greed. I've rebuilt my life slowly, methodically, with the same precision I once brought to guarding the tomb. I remarried 2 years ago to Amanda, a nurse who works with wounded veterans. She knows my story, all of it, and loves me not despite my past, but because of how I handled it. "You could have destroyed them privately," she said once, after we'd watched the video resurface in someone's social media feed. "Why did you choose public humiliation?" "Because private destruction teaches no lessons," I replied. "Public consequences serve as warnings to others." Sarah and David's betrayal wasn't just personal, it was an attack on the values that hold society together: honor, loyalty, sacrifice. When those values are attacked, they must be publicly defended. Sometimes, late at night, I remember the rhythm of those 21 steps, the weight of responsibility, the sacred duty of keeping watch over heroes who could no longer speak for themselves. In those moments, I understand that my real victory wasn't exposing Sarah and David's betrayal. It was refusing to let their dishonor corrupt my own values. The unknown soldiers taught me that some things are worth defending regardless of personal cost. Honor is one of them. Truth is another. And sometimes, the greatest service we can provide is ensuring that both endure, no matter who tries to bury them in lies and deception. Today, I train the next generation of tomb guards, passing on not just the technical skills of the ceremony, but the deeper understanding of what we protect. We don't just guard the dead, we guard the living memory of what they died for. 21 steps north. Pause for 21 seconds. About face. 21 steps south. The watch continues. The honor endures. And somewhere in Arlington, the unknown soldiers sleep peacefully, knowing that their sacrifice still matters, still inspires, still teaches us the difference between right and wrong. Justice served with military precision. Mission accomplished.